Welcome to the Personal Brand Era podcast. I'm your host, Ella Ray, and I'm excited to talk to Jennifer Brown Flewelling today. She works with small and medium-sized businesses to build marketing and sales systems. Welcome to my show.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
The first question that I would love to ask you is, how did you get into human resources, marketing, and the coaching niche?
So for me, I got in very early. I knew at a young age that I wanted to own my own business. My grandfather had a family business, and I worked in that from a really young age until I went and worked for other people. So I knew my education was paid for by my grandfather. So I was going to college or university, just wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to own my own business. And I knew the value of understanding people and working with people, and our companies are only as strong as the people within. So I decided to go into human resources so that I could learn more about building teams, working with teams, and helping to build bigger and better businesses.
I do love that story. It's quite unusual that you have seemingly such a deep connection with your grandfather. Um, have you been raised by your grandparents, or how did that come into play?
So my grandparents lived 3 blocks away from us, and my mother worked for my grandfather in his photography business. They not only took the pictures, but they developed them. And both of my grandmothers worked there as well. And then I worked there when days were off. And my uncle was a photographer, and I worked for him as well. So we had a lot of family gatherings because we lived in a small town in Ontario, Canada. And they had a pool, which made it kind of the place to congregate. And then they had a boat, and we spent a lot of time, because they worked in the school system, we had our summers off. So spent a lot of time with them. And I was probably the closest of all the grandchildren because I was the oldest of my group of brothers.
And I hear you talk a lot about generational marketing. Now, I'm very interested in your perspective on that. What is it, first of all? And why is that particularly important when people plan to build their small or medium-sized businesses in terms of marketing and teams and automating the businesses?
Absolutely. So why I've kind of zoned in on the generational marketing is because when we look at marketing as a whole, we've always kind of done the Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 business model. That worked really well for our baby boomers, right? They typically, there's only one of them that left the home to go out into the workforce at that time. We had somebody that was at home that could book appointments, take care of the day-to-day of what was happening and going on in the household. They very much were about brand, and they had their old Sears comes to mind in Canada. We have they very were brand loyal, but they very much needed to be in contact with people. Generation X, we kind of just always did it the way that the baby boomers did it. And then as we moved to the millennial in North America in 2019, our millennials became more in the workforce than our baby boomers. So our baby boomers are retiring and they're leaving, and we're seeing that now it's kind of a time to change things and to start to do things. We knew when I was in school, when I was 21 years old, saying that we needed to use technology to prepare for when our baby boomers left the workforce, and how would we exactly be able to replace that huge group. And now we're seeing shortages of employees throughout every sector, whether it be healthcare, service sector. It doesn't matter if it's a high pay or low pay job, we're seeing that, right? So now we need to be marketing to the proper demographic. And our millennials, they're not the type of people that are going to typically pick up the phone. Most millennials will do anything they can to prevent from having that conversation on the phone. So that's where things like texting or having an online calendar so that people can go ahead and do business with you when they're ready. We always have we're most apt to reach out when we have that point of pain. And a lot of times that point of pain doesn't come during Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And as businesses are more and more having to scale back, we're using things like automation to look at how can we be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for our clients, but give our employees that work-life balance. In Canada, in Ontario, 2 years ago, they came out with a policy that said, if you're a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday employee, you are not allowed as an employer to contact your employees. Doesn't matter if it's text, email, or any other communication, they are off. So that was Ontario's way of saying, we're going to handle work-life balance at a government level.
That is very interesting, and we will get to work-life balance later in the interview. For now, I would love to talk more about the misconceptions specifically in your niche that you see on a day-to-day, because this will be quite important for listeners to know and to recognize before they continue with their misconceptions that they have in their minds.
Yeah, so the software that I use is Pipeline Pro, and I had gone all around the globe. I was part of a group through Alberta Women Entrepreneurs that basically was able to test out systems globally and find which ones work the best. And the reason why I landed on this one is it allows people to see in an ecosystem everything from, where that customer's coming from. So we've got all of these things out on social media, whether we're doing Google AdWords or flyers, it doesn't matter if it's online or grassroots. We need to be able to know where those clients are coming from, but we need to able to see where they go in the journey. Do we need to take them off of Facebook and give them a journey of, just information, education? That is the best thing that we can do in marketing, is know who your client is and then educate to them, give them knowledge, and then they're more apt to want to be engaged with you. And by doing that, then they can become a customer. And by automating your processes, you're able to decide whether or not everybody has that same experience. So one example we have within our workflow is, when we have an install, we then have a checklist that's built all within one system. Every piece of paper you ever have built within this ecosystem, and then it automates things like getting a review, knowing where your customer is most satisfied, and then asking them for that review at that exact moment allows for you to be able to get those reviews, respond to those reviews, and be able to compete in a place like Google. Google, in a lot of ways, the bigger businesses are buying up the leads online, but small and medium-sized businesses, we have to be a little more clever, and we have to make sure that we're doing all the right things, as far as like being on the map, making sure that we're, able to book 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't want to take the chance of them thinking about it at 8 o'clock at night, and then the day starts at 9 and they've forgotten. So being in front of the client when they're ready and allowing them to be able to engage with you 24/7.
I'm really sure, since you are working with that type of system, you have noticed specific behavior trends and preferences, specifically for small and medium-sized businesses, that could help my audience navigate better as business owners.
Yeah, and the beauty of having all the communication into one spot is that if you're out sick, say you get the flu and you can't come in for a week, those clients don't have to sit there and wait for you. Your team and the people around you are able to move them along within the process. We see a lot of smaller businesses. It's that, entry-level position that we really need to put those automations in, because that position typically has the most turnover, and that's where the customer is most engaged with the company. And then to have that friction, you may be losing them before you've even had a chance to sell to them.
Exactly. Yeah. You also talk about using inclusive language and images and messaging, and I would like to know how that can impact the effectiveness of marketing and sales just in general for small and medium-sized businesses.
Yeah, so once you kind of have your avatar and you know who your ideal client is, it's very important that you are showing your ideal client throughout your marketing. You're having the same languaging. So in one of my companies, we have very different areas. We have one area that people go to retire. The rest of them are all millennials. So the area that is going to retire, we market everything with a phone number, and it's quick, it's easy, they can link and they're talking to somebody on the phone. But on our flyers and that we do in our other area is more primarily our millennials, we're using things like QR codes and links because that's where they are. But then the imagery, right? I'm not going to, when I don't do, give us a call and then show, a 30-year-old person. That we then use that for people that may be a little bit older. And that's just, very generic. It's not to say that people that are 70 aren't going to book online. I see 90-year-old woman book an appointment the other day at the blood clinic. So it can happen. And same as, you can have a 20-year-old that doesn't like to text or book online. They want that information beforehand. It's allowing your customers to decide how they want to do business with you.
And would you suggest then for small and medium-sized businesses to niche down, let's say in the beginning phases of building a business? Would you say it is smarter, since we need to use such narrowed messaging, images, and language to really narrow down the avatar? How much would you say does someone need to narrow down in the beginning stages?
In the beginning, I think is super important, but I think you also want to be allowing it to kind of change. I remember one client, they were doing food replacements, and they thought it would be moms. Moms would want to do this. They're on the go. So they really niched down to that mom. Well, they did trade shows. So they went where there's lots of people, different people. Well, lo and behold, it wasn't the moms that were overly interested in it. It was the oil field workers that are out on the leases that don't necessarily get their breaks and they want this and that. They became the biggest client of that. So it's not always the best to, it's funny where things will go, but you typically know your customer. And a lot of times we are our customer. So for me, getting this software and going down this journey and becoming this, I have been that person that's, kind of taken the best of each of the programs and found something that allows for small and medium businesses to be ready to scale. That's the other thing, right? With small businesses, you want to kind of start off small because you don't want to be doing a $200,000 spend when it may not be all set up properly. You want to be able to track it and know who listens to what language. And that's where we have split testing behind the scenes for social that shows us a lot of that.
So it does sound like it is also smart to test a lot in the beginning, as you say, to keep yourself open to other possibilities when it comes to your avatar, not narrowing yourself down so much that you are stiff in a way and you don't see others who might be interested in it, right? So testing different types of avatars, I would also recommend that to my clients, for example, because you do never know who might be interested as well and who might become a bigger client pool for your business. And I think this is tying also back to how we communicate, right, to our avatars specifically. And you are very prone to automating communication with particular avatars or all of your avatars that you develop over time, of course. And you also talk about gathering feedback from diverse audiences, your target audience. How can this feedback particularly be leveraged to improve marketing and sales strategies?
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways that we can do that. We don't just automate a lot of the processes. It's in a workflow, but of that workflow. So for example, if we, in one company, if we don't get a sale, they go into a pipeline that they get a voicemail from us, thanking them for having us in their home. And then a task goes out to the office person the following day to follow up. And then 3 days, the salesperson, and then 5 days. So giving that brand experience clients is just as important internally as externally, for sure.
Definitely, because you can build out different types of follow-up sequences, if you will, whether it is via email, catching up with them and introducing something that might need more of or less of, right? To stay in communication with your clients, really. Or whether it is being, as you said, voicemail, SMS, any kind of other workflows that you can build behind it. I personally use Go High Level, which sounds like a very similar tool, like the one that you were using. And I'm quite raving about the capabilities of creating different pipelines for different types of avatars and creating workflows that you can automate in a way that would fit and be personalized to a very specific avatar, right? Especially if you are, let's say, offering different types of services as a business owner, right? You have service
Yes.
A, service B, and service C. And then with such tools, you can really automate and personalize that for each and every service where people are coming in for service A, but they didn't book, so maybe they need service B, right? That is maybe complementary to your whole suite of services, so to speak.
We're looking at that avatar and kind of how they want to be communicated to. Another thing that, we're helping companies do is if they have a product, what is the lifespan of that product? If it's a 30-day supply, are you back in their inbox within the 25 days before they're coming out? Do you have a subscription in your business model? There's different ways to be able to build businesses in today's way through automation. Like we have one company that they have these cells that they have to replace yearly. So every year, at 11 months, we start to remind them of that. And then that's generating sales that, now you haven't even paid for that lead. That is a reoccurring lead. And we're seeing huge numbers back to people who are using that clientele base or that ideal customer base to communicate with. We break it in, most of our companies break into quarters. So quarterly, where, we always celebrate something in North America quarterly. So we're tying that in and educating and just kind of being in their inbox so that they're thinking of us top of mind so that when they do need that service or product, that we're there.
Does this platform or software that you're using also incorporate email marketing? Is that one feature that is built in? So you can kind
Yeah.
of do everything, SMS, emails, calling. Is there also a calendar included?
Everything lives within one ecosystem. So when you go into a client's file, you can see all the paperwork that they filled out. You can see all of the emails, texts, calls, everything sits within their portfolio. It's kind of like being in, the pilot of your client. You're able to see everything, all the tasks that have been completed, appointments gone, everything that you need to be able to give that client that experience is at the touch of your hands. Like when a client calls in, their portfolio is already coming up so that you can be knowledgeable while you're talking to your client. And you can make them feel like you remember them because they remember you. And many of my companies, these are high-end items that we're selling and they want to be remembered and treated special. So that's where, having a system that can support your staff to be able to be unique and different and special to your clients. Emails, right now, email is opening about 22%. Text, people open about 80% of texts. So we'll do email marketing on the off months, and then we do the text marketing quarterly, and we're seeing 25 to 30% of our income is coming from that, whether it's them referring a friend or a family member, or even if they have a remake, it's a way for us to be in the front of their mind.
And it sounds like this platform is very versatile and gives a lot of features all in one. What are you personally raving the most about this platform? What is one feature or maybe three features that you would say, wow, this is so amazing. I would only get this for these three features alone, right? This particular software.
I would say the calendar. So the calendar integrates into Outlook or Google. So your employees could have their own calendars, or you could have your own calendar that it links into. So if you have soccer game with your kid at 4 o'clock, that appointment will not show up. You can determine the hours that you work, how many of those kind of appointments there are. You control everything on the backside of that calendar, allowing your customers to be able to book whenever, based off of your availability. And then the second thing I would say is the value of texting previous clients and staying in communication. We had a lot of window covering laws that changed in Canada over 2022, and it was nice to be able to communicate those out to the clients and really lead that charge. And then the third is tracking. Based off of my experience, you need to be able to have numbers that you can track, whether that be your cost of acquisition, whether that's how much the average ticket is, how many of the people do you need in order to close, the amount you need to live. All of working those numbers is so important because every number tells some kind of story.
It does, and it prevents you from doing decisions based on your emotions, right? Because when you don't have any kind of numbers, and I personally did that mistake in the beginning when I started my business, and I see clients do the same mistake in the beginning. We kind of think of, oh, I will float, I will do whatever I feel, and it will work out somehow, right? That's obviously not a strategy that you should go for in the beginning. If you want like long-term success and if you want clients to come in consistently, you need to kind of make a boundary between your emotions and business decisions. That's what I personally learned in the past years that helped me really create a consistent and successful business that would really function like a real business and not like just a hobby kind of thing, right? I think this is very, very crucial to consider in the very beginning, even though it seems to many people, especially women, I feel, tracking numbers, having a CRM system, all this uncool stuff, right? It seems like I don't need it. I don't want it, right? This is the immediate reaction that I had myself, and many of the coaches that I work with also have the same kind of tendency towards analytics, numbers, logical stuff, and really following the nitty-gritty of your business, right? The internal workings that right, the gears that are turning behind what you're so passionate about, right? I feel this is really, really crucial. And whether you are invested in the type of software that you work with, what's the name again? Pipeline Pro.
Pipeline Pro, yeah.
Or whether you are choosing any other type of platform that offers you a really extensive CRM system, I feel is very, very important.
Yeah, and the beauty with the Pipeline Pro is they have a lifetime license. It's $37, and like that's for the lifetime. So you can download your contacts in there. You can start, having those notes, paying attention to that. The automation is more of a monthly fee that we can onboard onto. But even if you're starting a business, to spend $37 and get a lifetime of a CRM, and you can really start to, see the avatars as they come in. Which ones are buying from you? Many people are like, I only work with women that are, 40 to 60 years old. And I'm like, well, what about men? Why don't you work with men? Like, you're cutting out half the population before you even know. And they, in their minds, have determined they are not. Now, I have a blessing and a curse. I have perfect masculine and feminine energy. So I love to work with both men and women. I find both, are very satisfying in a different way. But you're right. Women, typically, we want to go on our emotions and our feelings, but our emotions and feelings don't pay the bills. Our numbers and money do.
So very true. So this kind of balance, and I have this discussion and conversation on my podcast a lot about feminine and masculine energy and how we can kind of balance those two to actually drive our businesses. And I feel a lot of women are struggling with that. And it's beautiful to see that you are incorporating both, and both advantages of both energies and also both target audiences, both men and women, right? And I feel we are coming closer now to the topic of work-life balance that we started talking about in the beginning. How does that tie into your way of structuring a business, specifically with your automation system? How does that benefit work-life balance, and why does it play such a big role in your work and life?
For us, the system allowed our company to have one email, one phone number, and one text number. So that was really important for somebody who's been doing sales for over 30 years. I mean, our Generation Xers, we were kind of given cell phones and said, "Here, now you get to do your job everywhere you go." So it was challenging, right? So my belief has always been that when people are at work, try and give 110% at work. But when you're at home, I expect that you're giving 110% to your family. So I've never been a believer in having my sales staff carry cell phones so that people can email and text. I've already put those things in place. I worked in the restaurant bar industry for many years and then went into the oil field. None of those places had work-life balance. So when I knew that I was going to purchase a business, I wanted one where there were no emergencies. So, I mean, we started in custom window coverings. There's no blind emergencies. So I create that culture, and our clients know that there's somebody in our office Monday to Friday, 9 to 3 to help you at any way you need. So, but after those hours, we'll get back to you. So we have, a system that when somebody calls in, they get a text letting them know that we're out of the office. They can go ahead and book a call back. They can leave a message. They can book an appointment, or they can do a remake. Anything that they'd be calling us for, we picked the top 4 or 5 things, and we said, here you are. We're giving this to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I know that not every industry can work that way, but when we really think about how, especially as women, we can be great, wives, mothers, and then on the other side of that, strong business leaders, because I do believe that, we need that heart of a woman in the business corporate world, because at the end of the day, like we started with my HR, it's all about your teams. It's about the people within your organizations. I love technology. So, I mean, we've used many different AI tools. We've used motivational mapping, disc profiles. I mean, when you can bring an expert in and have your people be vulnerable on learning, and you can learn how to work with them, it's huge.
Did you have any people and a woman specifically in your life that would foster your outlook on work-life balance, or maybe on being a woman in that sense?
Yeah. When I had my children, they're 24 and 6 now. So many years ago, being working in the bar industry back then, people smoked. So when I became pregnant, I had to leave my job, and I ended up doing nannying for a lady. And she was a single mom. She had 3 kids and had a very strong VP of a huge construction company. And I would say she really helped me to see how you could be a great mom, and how you could put your kids first, but yet you could run a business and be a boss.
That's a beautiful story, because I'm a single mom as well, and I know the challenges of kind of find the time to be a nurturing mom, right? The soft skills that you should portray as a woman, right? As a mom. But also at the same time, as a multiple business owner, it's very challenging to switch between those two, and to not lose yourself as a person, because you are always trying to balance between those two, right? And remain as the leader of your own person is, I feel, one of the most challenging things as a single mom. Maybe listeners will agree to that if they are single moms as well.
I was a single mom for many years. At the beginning of I bought my first franchise in 2008. I became a single mom in 2009. It was a lot of work. My kids went to, everything that I had to go to, they would go. We went to farmers markets, and we did those, door hangers and grassroots marketing, and to help my kids to be able to help build that business alongside of me was probably one of the most rewarding times, but most difficult times, because they still needed mom. And I was blessed. I had a nanny for many of those years, but I mean, the expectation is that we can do it all. And we're seeing a mass exodus of VPs and presidents and companies that are women because they're crumbling. I think the best advice I could do for any woman that works full time in a business or out in the work world is get a cleaning lady. Get a cleaning lady. That's all you need to do. Get a cleaning lady, and hopefully she'll do your laundry. That's in 15 years, 20 years of owning my own business. Those were the two things: the cleaning lady and my calendar. I schedule everything in my calendar. When my kids had a tournament, that went in my calendar, and it just they became appointments. And that sounds harsh, but I put them in like I put my top client in, because that they were what I was doing all of it for.
Well, I do the same thing. There's just no other way to structure your day in a way that everyone can benefit from you as a mom and business owner. Like, I put everything in my calendar as well, like how I do free schooling with my kids as well. We are traveling all the time, full time. So I also teach my children everything that they might need to create a life that they will be fulfilled with. So I put my daughter's schooling lessons also in my calendar, because I want to be consistent. I want to also teach her how to be consistent, how to not just lose yourself because you're not in school, but like teach skills that are really valuable, maybe for her to one day also become a business owner, which I feel is like a really big shift in this generation, in this younger generation after me. Young people see being a business owners as something very cool. Is that something that you also notice and would say is a big shift into thinking about your life, and even work-life balance is not even a thing anymore because they don't want work anymore, right? The younger generation, they don't want to work, they want to live. How can you
Yeah.
address that as a business owner if you want to outsource things, right? And if you want to build a team?
Well, and it's interesting, right? Because like in Canada, North America, we're seeing these apps, right? So you can get your groceries delivered, you can get your food delivered, you can get all these deliveries. And we're seeing that, like I do online grocery shopping, have for years. And now it's interesting. I can go online and get my groceries delivered to my house within an hour. If I go to the grocery store, they don't have the people bringing it through the tills. So what is the difference? Well, one is an employee that has a schedule given to them, and they determine they have to live their life around it. The other one is an app that allows them to turn on when they want to make money. So it's an instant gratification, right? There's the go work this and then you get paid immediately. So, and that, I mean, our generation next, the Generation Z, they are even more risk adverse than the millennials. So, I mean, it's not going away. So now we have to, as employers, are we going to measure time by hours, or are we measuring it by task, by job? If I can do something in 5 hours and you can do it in 2, why are you penalized and I'm paid? So, I mean, and that's the modeling, right? When we think about what if 9 to 5, Monday to Friday was not the necessity anymore? How could we change our businesses? And that's where with working with small and medium-sized businesses, what part of your business can you bring online? Do you have 30% of your revenue coming from online? Think about that. You could sleep at night and have 30% of your revenue working while you're sleeping. If you think you love making money in business, wait till you make money while you sleep. There's no better feeling.
Oh, it definitely is. Now, in all of your experience during the past years, what was one client result or experience that you made with a person, with a business owner, that impacted you and your life significantly?
I'm gonna go back a long time ago. And it wasn't a client. It was somebody that mentored me. It was a district manager that I had in one of the retail jobs that I had. We had a lot of chaos within the organization at the time, and this gentleman came in and he gave me a good lesson. There was a lot of backbiting in the retail sector because it's predominantly females. And in saying that, he said, saying something, if everything you say is on the front page of the newspaper that your grandmother reads, will you be okay with that? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I want her to hear everything. And for me, that was really, it was like, yeah, you know what? That's a pretty good way to live. If you just, if you would say it in front of your whoever you admire, my grandparents are huge for me, then be okay with it. But if you're not, then you probably shouldn't say it. And really trying to work with people out of a place of kindness. I really am a believer that especially entrepreneurs, we have such heart and ambition. I love to be able to help people to be successful. I have had a franchise that was not as successful. I mean, anybody who has business, if you do enough businesses, you will fail. And really and truly, a lot of times in that failure, you will learn more.
And the newspaper example reminds me of the situation that we're in right now, because social media is kind of the newspaper that everyone holds in their hands. So I oftentimes hear the struggle of people and female coaches, particularly, not knowing the difference or how to navigate actually through authenticity and how much to actually show and tell on social media in order to get clients, right? Their number one goal, after all. Do you have any tips or strategies that maybe you have developed over the years, how to navigate this particular area?
I think being authentic. I think authentic and solving a problem, right? I mean, and for me, I think people need to have done it. If you're somebody who's never been self-employed and always relied on a check to come in every month, to go and to teach people who are entrepreneurs how to figure out their business and their life and the balance between those, I don't think that's a good fit, right? I think that in today's day and age, we do a lot of overselling sometimes, and it's kind of like fake it till you'll make it. But if you're faking it till you make it and you're spending other people's money, you should probably know what you're saying. And I think the authenticity is the biggest thing, is be authentic. If you're trying to be somebody else, and even if you can get those clients into a mini program and then maybe even get them into their long-term program, they're not going to be happy if they are sold something that you're not, or that you haven't tested.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, because I work from a perspective of building a personal brand. Now, that requires you to be unique and also acknowledge your unique brand assets, if you will, or assets as a person, right? As a coach, as a personal brand. So this means you cannot go out and copy anyone else or just fake it, because what will you build in the end if you start faking it? Not your personal brand. If you go out and copy other people, as you said, we are overselling stuff, and I see that a lot, especially in the US. How marketing is done, how sales is done, very loud, right? This is kind of, especially male coaches and entrepreneurs have a tendency to be loud, which is manly. It's okay to do that. But if, as a woman, you try to do the same thing, like, whose personal brand are you going to build? Obviously not yours, but the person's who you are imitating, right? So I think I 100% agree that authenticity and acknowledging your own unique sets of skills and personality and values must be on the forefront, because people, when they sign up for your programs and services, they will see the real you once they sign up. So if the front is kind of a lie, if it's kind of a fake, or is just a copy of something, they will notice soon enough, and they will not become loyal clients or recurring clients, right? And then you can have the most amazing automation system and CRM system right behind your business. If people are not going to use that, like, you are wasting your money once again. So what you are using, the system, the CRM system and the automation system, the pipeline pro system, right, only works if you actually intend to be authentic, if you have your heart on the right place, if you intend to be a leader in your space and in your niche. Otherwise, it's just a waste of resources, a waste of your time and your own sanity, because you are driving yourself against the wall.
Yeah, for sure. And you see it over and over again. Or people that hire, I'm a big believer in hire people to do what they do best and you do what you do best. So for people to, so many, especially women entrepreneurs, I see it more than I do in men. We need to understand everything. We need to, write every email. We get so caught up in the weeds that we forget about the business model. And it's like, let's just get you comfortable with your talk or your sales pitch or whatever it is, and that can be built out after. But they have to, it's almost like, I remember years ago we built out our website and it was delayed, and I was just choked that it was delayed. I'm like, oh my god, like, this website's going to be on here, I need it. And it was like, when we finally got it launched a week later, nobody noticed. Right. And we build things up so big in our own minds. And a lot of times, that's the value of working with a coach or an entrepreneur that's going to help lead you through this next step, right? Because you need somebody to help you. Like, I've worked with coaches every year for 15 years. Some kind of coaching I will commit to. During COVID, I committed to a speaking program because I hated public speaking, but I knew it was a necessary evil. I've worked with Action Coach, many different coaching programs. And no matter what it is, the idea is that by the end of that year, I've paid for that coaching, plus I've grown. And that education and growth, you'll get that return on investment throughout your entire life. Those lessons never go away. And, people say, oh, I'm not ready for a coach. I'm like, you're always ready for a coach. If you're starting, you definitely need a coach. Go with somebody who's done all these mistakes and you can learn their shortcuts, because it's painful the other way.
I would even say, if someone thinks I'm not ready for a coach, you're especially ready for a coach, because you are saying that. And I feel, being also a voice trainer, learning communication, effective communication, is so important, especially as a coach or business owner, because you will be using your voice everywhere. Literally, whether it is in a written form, whether it is audio, or whether it is video, you will always be presenting yourself in one way or another. And this ties closely into what we have talked about here, that you can only be also a very strong leader and team leader, right? If you want to build a team around your business, which you will at some point, right? If you're fed up enough doing everything yourself, right? You will go into team building. You will need certain skills in recognizing what kind of people can I hire, do I need to hire, and what kind of people do I need to avoid hiring, right? If I want my business to really drive forward and not just fall back one step, take two steps forward, right? This kind of hiccup, you don't want that, right? And being an effective communicator is one of the most important things about that, because it will also enable you to recognize people and personality types, and seeing things in other people, because you have looked inside yourself as an effective communicator.
Yeah, and even in saying that, right, we have partnerships with different people that do the disc and the motivational mapping. And to have somebody come in and tell you what you are, and then to build your team. When I came in, there was 8 of us in this one team that we were working in, and of the 8, I was the only one that was a high D. Everybody else was an S and a C. And it made sense, right? I surrounded myself with where my weakness was, so that everybody has their level of expertise. And that's why I always love using the word team, because I think everybody, no matter if you're the person answering the phone or you're the president of the company, if we can all understand the value of working together as a team, that eliminates a lot of the work that we do on a day-to-day of friction. It's just eliminating the friction, whether it's within the company or whether it's within the customer experience, figuring out the way to eliminate the friction so that you can have that work-life balance as well as have, employ. That's what people want. That it's a number one search term in 2000, I think. It was crazy.
What term was it?
Work-life balance.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was the number one search term in, I think it was 2020.
Okay,
We've
yeah.
been talking about it for a long time. It's now time to start doing it.
Definitely, yeah. And I think the biggest challenge is really for business owners to respect that kind of direction that younger generations are going now. Because if they don't, I feel like a lot of businesses will crumble because you depend on other people. And there are, of course, models where there are solopreneurs, right? They have a one-man business and they are earning 20 million, right? It is all possible, right? If you build a very small niche business where you don't want more than that, if you don't want to scale into unbelievable numbers, it's definitely possible. So depending on your goals, you will never go around building a team, really. And would you say, is that the most important thing that you would recommend small and medium-sized businesses in the beginning to think about team building from the start?
Yeah, I think it's really important. And hire what you're not good at. Don't hire somebody that has the same strengths as you. And then what ends up happening, if you have an alpha personality, which a lot of business owners do, and then you hire somebody who has an alpha, you've got too much conflict. You need to hire people that are complementary. And then as you do that, 11 or 12, start hiring people that can challenge you and you can grow better with. But a lot of times doing assessments on candidates is a much better thing to do. Hire slowly, fire quickly. And it's sad to say, but anybody that you've kept longer and you kept hoping and praying that they would get better, chances are if they haven't in the first 3 months, they're probably not going to. Because it's like dating. We're all good in the first 3 months.
So true. And we kind of have the mask on during the first 3 months. And after that, it's really hard to play the mask anymore. That is actually really, really important. I heard that before, to hire slow and fire fast. How do you actually assess and make sure that you fire in the right frame, right? Would you say this 3 months is kind of the time frame that is most interesting to look at? You have to train people, right? You have to give them time to learn all the processes and understand the brand, business, the inner workings of everything. So how much time would you give someone?
I'll speak to the last person that we parted ways. We had done a motivational mapping, and after I hired her, big mistake, should have done it prior to, but in a hurry, didn't do it, hire slow. And it came back that her personality type was that of not being able to take responsibility, never going to be her fault. And that was her natural motivational mapping, that it came back as that. And we had an action plan, right? Like, how are we going to be able to change? Once you identify it, once people see where their weaknesses are, they automatically want to try and do better with that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I always think the first 3 months is to really get to know each other and to see if it's a fit. Sometimes it's just not a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, it's better for you to move on and allow them to go find a position that they're better suited for, and for you to find what you really need within your company.
What does it actually mean to hire slow? What kind of processes do you put in place to hire slow?
So I love doing group interviews. Group interviews are, if we have a mass group that we have to hire, I will do group interviews all day, every day, because when people come into a group interview, they are more apt to act like themselves than they aren't. They're just because it becomes almost like a high school cafeteria, right? Everybody kind of has their position, and if they're an over talker or they're not a listener, you're going to see that, because that level of, oh, we're in an interview and I need to mimic what you're doing so that you know, like, and trust me, and then you'll hire me. In a group, it's very different. It's an extremely different process. And then from a group interview, you know, a lot of times we'll do, depending on the position, where we'll have them, you know, book an appointment, see how much detail they have, see how much their writing is, how much they can give, you know, how they deal with the client. So we really look at them in the job training. In some parts of our company, we actually have them go out for a day. At the end of the day, if they don't like the job, then we say, thanks a lot, here's your check, and we move on. So it's really setting the person up for every stage of that job and what your company beliefs are. And, you know, if you're a company that is really balanced around in work-life balance per se, and you are coming in saying, I'm working 80 hours a week and I'm gonna be the top person, probably not the same fit. And it's okay not to be the same fit. We look at it as a failure. We hired the wrong person. And I think we just need to look at it as, we didn't know each other well enough. And now that we know each other well enough, there's probably somewhere better suited for you.
And would you also say that some attributes are just not important in the hiring process?
Yeah, I think a lot of things aren't important. I think, you know, being able to do the task, sometimes that is irrelevant. I can teach you how to do a lot of things. I can't teach you how to have empathy for people. I can't teach you how to be, you know, a really good communicator and a good team member. If you're an I person, chances are you are not a team player. There are some people that just don't like to interact with other people. They don't want to talk on the phone. They don't want to, you know, be the brand or the face of their company. I mean, that's why they work for somebody else, right? But if in small and medium businesses, you need to be aware of, some people are not. And a lot of times positions, right? If you're doing data entry, you have to be a meticulous being. You need to be able to, you know, dot all the I's and cross all the T's. If you're writing for social media, you have to be a strong in grammar and spelling. Those are things I can't teach you. I mean, I can give you Grammarly, we can run it through some AIs, but ultimately you should probably come with that skill if I'm paying at that level.
Yeah, definitely. There needs to be a threshold of certain skills that someone just needs to bring. Even though you could teach all these things, but how much time will it take? And that's not even touching the skills or the things that they need to do in your company. So I think it's good to say and safe to say that before someone thinks about hiring someone, to really think about what you expect them to already bring, because you don't want to teach it or you cannot teach it. What are the requirements for this particular job that you want them to do for them to do well, right?
Yeah, and like I said, those motivational mask and mappings and the disc, both of those kind of tell you the traits of that personality type based off of their answers. So everybody's given the same questionnaire, they go through, and then it kind of tells you where they would be comfortable. If you're not a person that is into leading people and bringing out the better in everybody, and you're put in charge of 200 people, that's not a good fit. You could probably do it because you need the money, but you're ultimately not where you naturally are. We all have a natural spot that we sit in. It's just who we are, how we became this way. And then beyond that, I mean, we can train ourselves differently. We can do work on it, but there's a baseline of, I need this to be happy.
And the problem that occurs when you hire the wrong person and you think, oh, it's fine, they will learn it, they will just do the job, is that they will destroy the business slowly, right? Every time that they don't feel comfortable in their natural habitat, so to speak, if they have to do things that they hate, maybe internally, but they force themselves, like that will destroy their mental health, first of all,
Yeah,
and maybe even physical health, right? You don't want to do that to a person. And then,
no.
of course, it will also destroy your business, because I feel like if you are so dedicated to your business, you should want your business to be healthy on all levels, right? And the
Right.
health starts with you as a business owner. Then it goes on to the health of your team members. And then it is the health of the business overall, right? You want to keep an eye on that. And you don't want to force people into positions where they cannot thrive, right? You don't want them to just do the job well. At least that's my view of things when I hire people. I want people to excel in that position. I want to give them enough freedom and enough things to work on that would help them become better and grow as a person, right? And also as a business member, as a team member, right? I think it's a killing culture even to hire people to have them do certain tasks that are boring, that are killing them inside. And I think big businesses especially are doing this type of hiring where they are not looking out for the health of the people and employees.
And that's sad, really, right? Like, I mean, as somebody who's worked in small to medium, I have worked for larger companies as well. To have that disconnect, it's not. I mean, it's not a kind way to run a business. We work with a lot of different businesses, and one thing that we've done over the years, my one team, we do it pretty regularly. We take a weekend out, and it's Saturday and a Sunday, and sometimes we do it together. Sometimes we go to the event. Sometimes we do it online at my house, and we build our dreams. We build our dreams on our, on all four quadrants of our life, and then we take that, and on the Monday morning we share that with each other, and then that way we're able to help to support each other. It can be something as simple as saying, hey, did you get your water intake today? I know that's a real focus for you, but having people focus on business goals is very important for the business, but having some kind of goal that you're physically working towards and it's supporting each other, that's where magic happens and teams are created, because you care about what that person's doing. And for me, I've been so blessed. I have loved every job I have ever had, and I know that not everybody has that same experience, and I'm sorry if you don't, but if you can get there, and then if you can get other people to have that same feeling about your company, that's winning in life.
I fully agree. What would you say are the main benefits when people start working with you, small or medium-sized businesses? What are the main benefits of working with you?
I think it's just seeing things from a different perspective. I think a lot of times when people think that they're focusing on their teams and we're doing this team building things and we're doing that, it's kind of like that's not really got a big return on investment. But then to be able to work with them and figure out ways that we can balance that, time, and figure out where are we wasting time. Every company has a time waster, and what can we do to either eliminate it or automate it and make that a better environment, right? And then that piece of technology to support. To me, those three things are the pillars of any successful business. And that's what I've done in all of my businesses and the businesses I work with. I think I have a very black and white view. It's not that I don't see other people's perspectives. I can see clearly different points of view.
Where can people find you to start that journey with you, working with you?
Yeah, we just launched our website, GoJel. So that's GO-JEL. If you go onto our website, we have on the back page, my consulting page. I also have a signature talk coming up here on October 12th, and we'll be talking about the different generations and how we can work with them, sell with them, the friction points. It kind of gives a good overview of, dives a little deeper, I guess, into what we've talked about here today. We have a mini program that's starting immediately after that, helping people to bring their marketing, their customer experience, and automating. So that's a really great program if you're a small business or even a medium business that doesn't have that 30% of your income coming from online. It's just a really good time for you to look at it. It's our last quarter of 2023. Setting yourself up for 2024. As business owners, that's what we need to be doing right now. We need to finish the year strong, but more importantly, we need to be thinking about what are the lessons that we've learned in 2023 and what are we going to change moving into 2024. As you move, you need to identify with your team the things that didn't work. You need to hear them that they didn't work. It's not good enough just to say, yeah, system A didn't work, we're going to go to system B in 2024. We need to identify what was good, what was bad, and what we can bring forward and make it better, and get people excited for another full year in business. We just celebrated our 15 years in business, and statistically, 25% of people get there, 75% don't. So there's never been, as we talk about inflation, things going up, we're, you know, it's a tough market out there. Our insurances doubled last year alone. And to do that, and you have to be able to have the margin to handle that. And you have to be able to, you know, take care of your people. So a lot of people are going to have to raise their prices in the next little while. And they're like, oh, how do we do that? Well, when inflation went up 8%, I had to give my staff an 8% increase, because that was the right thing to do. They needed to put food on their families' tables, their childcare, everything had gone up. So, you know, taking care of your staff or your teams like your family. And that really, I think, is who I'm looking to work with. People that really want to make a difference, and they want to be able to look back and people say, wow, I worked for that company and they really cared about me.
I really love that. It is very congruent with how I operate and how I see things in business and in personal life. Is there something that you would like to say as a last advice in this interview?
I think the biggest thing is, like you said as well, getting that CRM system, get it in place, get your habits in place now. Because if you start to scale or you start to get busier, just having a few things in place will allow you to be able to give yourself work-life balance. Because as small business and medium-sized businesses, most people are doing a horrible job at that. But in being able to teach that to other people. And then that way you're open to how your business could look into the future. We need to, the ways we've always done it may not work, because we have moved into a different generation dominating. And the next generation, like we talked about, even more risk adverse. They're going to want to be entrepreneurs and they're going to want to work for themselves. But you need a system. You have to have a system. The best thing you can do for yourself is spend $37 on Pipeline Pro. And then when you're ready to scale and to automate, the step is next, right? And they have programs for all, like small to medium, anywhere from, you know, $200 to $800. I mean, to run a full CRM system and everything you need under one place, to be a business owner that only has to log into one place to see your numbers, magical.
It is. I definitely subscribe to that. It is crucial, especially just like you mentioned, at the point where you decide to scale, or where you feel like, oh, a lot of more clients are coming in. How am I going to handle it if you don't automate smart, right, with a system that would help you do that behind your back as an automation, not like, oh, I'm hiring more people who can do that job. Very valuable. People need to look into this. And of course, I will leave all the links to contact Jennifer in the description and show notes, so you can get in contact with her and learn more about her and everything that she's has coming up in the next few weeks. Thank you so much. It has been amazing talking to you and getting to know your world of HR and how you see marketing, generational marketing, and how we can actually balance life and work from your perspective.
Awesome. Thank you.